William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
If you agreed with him or you disagreed with him, I encourage you to find him and find the youth and go and have those discussions. Because if there's one thing that I know is that as you get older, whether or not things work or don't work as well as they used to, there is wisdom with experiences. And it will get lost if it is not shared. So please make sure to follow up and share the wisdom that I know that y'all have. So to keep things rolling, I want to invite Barton Poche from the UNT Psychology Department to share the research that he's been working on and that I know he's going to be asking from you. So, Barton, please welcome.
Good morning. I am a Gen Xer, so I very much appreciate Canon giving me a very manageable task rather than trying to save the world today. I'm also a weapons-grade windbag, but I'm going to try to get us back on schedule too. I am going to talk to you about some research that we're conducting at UNT, but I also wanted to contribute something today too, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, briefly if I'm good, some current research in the field of LGBT aging. And I have control of this somehow? Okay, thank you. So I am with the Center for Psychosocial Health Research at UNT. We are a LGBTQ-focused research team, mainly psychosocial issues affecting the community, as well as quality of life indicators for people living with HIV. And we also research effective clinical interventions for a therapeutic setting, again geared towards LGBTQ people. So a few things I'll talk about. I'll give you a brief overview of some current research. I won't give you many statistics today. I'll talk about the concept of intersectionality, which is another project we're working on, and I think is very critical to this discussion about aging LGBT. And I'll address, not nearly as eloquently as Miles did, the generational divide. I think I'll be referring back to them a few times as I speak today. But I'm going to talk about the other end of that. So there is the marginalization of the younger group, and I'm going to talk about the marginalization of the older group of people in the LGBT community. And then I'll give you just a brief plug for my study. That'll only take a minute, but I am very excited about the research we're doing. I somehow just skipped to the very last slide. Thank you very much. Way up. I think Rafiq's giving me a hint.
You're good.
I made up some time. Thank you, dear. That's it. Yep. I don't know what I did there. My generation can do computers. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so really, this should be called recent research because there isn't a lot of current research on aging LGBT. I want to talk first about some limitations in the field of aging LGBT research. And before we talk about anything related to groups of people, I do want to make sure that I say I do not, and I don't intend to overgeneralize or to pathologize. When I talk about groups of people, I'm talking about prevalence rates. And so I'll probably say too many times just so I don't sound like that's what I'm doing, that is not what I'm trying to do. But some of the limitations that we have in social sciences research for aging LGBT, one, there just isn't very much of it. Literature is very scarce. Part of that is due to a lack of advocacy. We heard Cannon talk about how the community has been so focused on HIV and AIDS that we haven't been as focused on some of the psychosocial issues affecting the community, and that includes our aging population. And with lack of advocacy comes lack of funding, and we need money to do research. We need to pay participants. Sometimes we need to pay employees. We don't have any, by the way. We all work completely for free. And so that is a gap, and I imagine that is something all of us in this room who advocate for LGBT causes do face, is lack of funding. It's difficult often to access the population, particularly the older generation, 70 plus. They're simply not out as much, not out of the closet, not out in the community as often, and so it's very difficult to engage with them to do research. And the same can be said somewhat of the boomer generation, but not nearly as much. And there has been, for the longest time, this invisible diversity within the community. We thought LGBT people were one thing, like we thought African American people were one thing. So all the research done in the past assumed white, middle class, middle income, well-educated people. That's who gay people were, and that's who we studied. And it turns out that's not very transferable to everyone else in the world. So that's something that we're trying to correct with the study that we're working on. I do want to start, like I said before, by saying that most aging LGBTQ people are psychologically well-adjusted. They are out of the closet, and this is crucially important in order, A, to do research, but B, to drive success in closing the gap between the population at large. For people to be out of the closet brings voice to a voiceless community. It brings one or two friends closer to the cause. Maybe it changes a vote or two. And for the majority of boomers, the vast majority of boomers are either mostly out or completely out. That number is smaller for 70 plus. They're healthy for their age, they're happy, they're proud, and they're younger than their age. They feel younger than their age. Felt age is less than that number. There is genuine research by that on the way. I'm not kissing up. That really is research about felt age is much lower. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these top 5. These are 3 things that are more prevalent in the aging community at large, not just LGBTQ, than in the general population as a whole. Anxiety and substance abuse probably sound familiar. There's a higher prevalence of those two in the LGBTQ community at large. Well, all 5 of these also affect the aging LGBT community. And then these 4 are kind of unique on the bottom, are kind of unique to aging LGBTQ, and I think we need to talk about them very briefly. Singlehood late in life is a problem for a lot of LGBTQ people. If you're single, it doesn't mean that you're going to develop mental illness or be lonely or unhappy. But LGBTQ people are twice as likely as their straight counterparts to be single late in life, whether that's because they simply never took a partner, they maybe lost their partner and chose not to gain another. Well, singlehood for some people does come with some disparities in mental health. It can lead to loneliness, it can lead to isolation and poor social support. And so it's something that we need to keep in mind. Lack of dependent caregivers. Again, this doesn't affect everyone, but LGBTQ aging people are 4 times more likely than their straight counterparts to not have children in their lives, either because they never had them or because sometimes family conflict develops with an LGBTQ parent and they are no longer in contact with each other, and so later in life the children aren't there. And this is important in terms of informal caregivers in the life of LGBTQ people. And then Christian talked about this horrible phenomenon of going back in the closet after surviving the worst stigmatizing discrimination time in history, and for fighting so long for everyone else to gain the rights and freedom that we have. We're forcing some LGBTQ aging people back into the closet because we can't find an LGBT affirming or LGBT specific retirement community or independent living facility for them to live in, and they decide that it is safer for them, it's more comfortable and easier for them to go back in the closet and not be who they are, and that is just such a horrible place for us to put them. And then lastly, barriers to assistance. This is rapidly changing, like in the next 2 weeks probably, depending on what happens with the Supreme Court case. We're going to lose a lot of these barriers related to spousal survivor benefits. And likely with gay marriage, when it's legalized in Texas, we'll lose a lot of the issues that we currently have with employer-sponsored survival benefits. I've never had a problem saying that word before, but survival benefits and health insurance from a surviving spouse. But we do still have LGBT discrimination in social services with government organizations and with social groups around town that do not cater to LGBT people, and that provides some barriers. Just because we're short on time, I'm going to skip this slide and come back to it if anyone really wants to talk about the minority stress model. I love this model. It talks about, as do many others, how this interaction with a homophobic society basically can create some of these negative mental health outcomes, but I think we're all professionals in the room on this. Okay, so good news. I don't want to end on that everything's going to hell in a handbasket if you're an aging LGBT person. You're not. You in fact have some very unique tools in your toolkit if you're an LGBTQ person. Having lived a life of surviving stigma and discrimination and fighting for your rights and fighting for your friends' rights, you have developed an amazing amount of resiliency by the time you age in the LGBT community. And there is a lot of research on this. Is one of the biggest things we have going for us, is that really at this point, nothing gets us down. Once you've gone through the battle that we've gone through and get to this point, it's kind of like the small things seem even smaller. And there is research showing that there is, I forget the way they put it, but essentially this resiliency is able to overcompensate for a lot of the traumatic events that often happen in childhood. And we find that LGBTQ adults are faring better than some of their straight counterparts with the same childhood trauma because of this incredible resiliency that they've built up. So this is an amazing tool that we have. Social network, I think we know all the things that cause social network to be different because of genetic families are different for LGBTQ people. But we have this amazing phenomenon of chosen families in the LGBT community. And this is a wonderful way of creating a strong social network for people throughout the course of their lives. And I'll talk briefly about that again in a moment. I think today we'll probably talk a lot about cultural competency and care for aging LGBTQ people. I won't talk too much about that. It is an important success factor for moderating a lot of these negative mental health outcomes. And then of course, like what's about to happen in 2 weeks, the changing geopolitical or socio-political landscape provides a new environment for us to live in, and it really does help to extinguish some of that stigma that we've encountered. I didn't look at a clock. Am I doing okay? Or I need to ramp it up. Okay, so intersectionality, very briefly. I won't talk too much about the definition. I'm going to just show it to you. You are all of these things. None of us are simply a gay person or a transgender person or a black person or a baby boomer. Each of these interplays in terms of our identity, and each of them on their own have their own different interplay. There are things within each of these. No single lesbian is the same in all of these other 5 dimensions of sexual orientation. And the same can be said for ethnicity. No Latina female is the same in the expression of her culture or language and her national origin. There are all kinds of dimensions within these what you can call labels. And the reason why this becomes important is that before, and one of the fallacies with previous research is we assumed that everyone fit into these big buckets. They all thought the same and acted the same and needed to be treated the same and had the same needs. And that's not true. There's tremendous diversity and complexity within the LGBT community, within ethnic minorities, within all kinds of groups. And this is, it's why the concept is important for research. It's why the concept is important for cultural competency as well. We can't train providers to take good care of our LGBTQ people if we treat them, if we teach them that they're all the same, can be treated the same, they think the same, they want the same things. This is a really important concept for us to take from research and move into application. I cannot do any more justice to the concept than Cannon and Miles did with the generational divide. Maybe I'll provide a little inspiration rather than information on this one. But I think we know that there is a thin but very sharp line between the X and Y and the boomers and the boomer plus in the gay community. And it comes from some places, and this is research based, I'm not making this stuff up, but as far as the ageism within the LGBT community comes from a value that is placed on youth, on being youthful and young, looking youthful, behaving youthful, physical attractiveness, physical fitness, and a lot of times that creates this divide between X and Y and boomer plus. Chosen families, like we talked about, are wonderful. One problem is they're often single generational. We don't often build multi-generational chosen families, and so what we then find is just by structure of our own networks, we've created a little bit more of a barrier between ages. And then simply different scenes. We hang out in different places, we do different things, and there's not a lot of crossover. And I think if you just look at these 3 things, you can probably already think of things we need to do to change this, to create more overlap, to get young people involved with the older generation. And the reason is because it does have effect on the generation to come. Without exposure to the advocacy that this generation has been so responsible for, exposing them to the history that they have built, they don't know about what Stonewall really was and what Compton really was, and they don't know who Harvey Milk was. And they don't know about the time before HIV was a manageable disease, when it was called the gay cancer and the what was it, the community wasting or whatever, all these other horrible things. And certainly when it killed so many people within the community, they're not aware of these things. They're not aware of, even in the early 90s, when hate crimes were at their worst, and you had, it seemed like every month a young person was being killed simply because of who they are. And it's sad to see, even today, now we still see transgender people in that exact same spot, where it seems like every month we're seeing a new person being killed. Forget the harassment, forget the bullying, being killed simply because of who they are. And this is 30 years after we introduced hate crime legislation, after Matthew Shepard, and we're still seeing that today. HIV, we've beat to death, maybe actually beat it to death. But there is an important educational value that's missing in this connection, and that those who did not live through the AIDS crisis, they don't have, and I don't think anyone should live in fear, but they don't have that healthy fear of what HIV is. It is a manageable disease, but it is difficult to manage. And we're just now starting to learn, and it's expensive to manage. We're just now starting to learn, we don't know yet, what long-term exposure to HIV medication is, because thank God, we now finally have the first generation to survive it that is aging and doing well and being healthy. But it is a difficult disease to manage, and we're seeing, unfortunately, zero progress in new diagnoses in this country over the last 7 years. Zero. In fact, we've gone up 1,000 or two a few years in the past 7 years. And so it's a message that's not getting out, and it's changing, and it's part of that generational gap. And then simply the appreciation for the contributions of LGBT seniors. These are the heroes in the LGBT community. They are responsible for the freedom, and I don't mean like political campaign George Bush freedom. I mean the fact that I have actual rights now that I didn't have before the work that this generation did. And I have civil rights that I didn't have. I have legal protections that I did not have, a direct result of the work that this generation did. All of us have the freedom to be who we are, to live out loud, to be out, and to feel comfortable in our own skin, and to not feel guilty ourselves, and to not feel homophobic ourselves because of all the work that's been done. And this is, unfortunately, something that the youngest of the generation, and I'm really not a millennial basher, I'm actually a huge fan of millennials, but it is a gap, and it's a problem, as Cannon was mentioning. As far as what it means for seniors, well, less advocacy means a lot of things. It means we have less funding, it means we have less visibility, it means we have less social programs, and the stigma that exists in the ones we have today will continue. We have fewer prospective informal caregivers. Again, that single generational created family is going to basically all age together, and if we don't have multi-generational cooperation, then we reduce the, particularly for those aging LGBT people without children. And then we don't need any more stigma for aging LGBT people. We get it from straight people who are aging. We get it from, sorry, I'm losing that one. What's that? We can leave that to the preachers. We certainly don't need the additional stigma that comes from young people in our own LGBT community. And it's a host of other issues that we've already talked about with the depression, the stigma, and discrimination that can bring. So, I hope that through some of this I've helped convey why I think there is value in research, and I think Cannon said it very well. Research is the map that we use to get where we need to go. And one of the research projects that we're working on is exactly this. We're working on trying to address the gaps in current research, which are broad. There are broad gaps. There's still homophobia in current research, and there's still these assumptions about the population that aren't true, that they're all white, middle-class, well-educated people. And by the way, they're all gay men, too. There's no such thing as a lesbian 20 years ago. And so there are huge gaps that need to be addressed. We're trying to bring light to the historical significance of the growth that has happened in our country and in the generation itself, and to find actual tangible needs in healthcare, mental health, and social services for aging LGBT people, and certainly to advance advocacy efforts like we're all here to do today. We're looking for 200 participants. This is a small start for us. We have just enough money to do it this way. And we want to get a good cross-section of the population, so we want to get, I broke it down here, 50 gay men, 50 lesbians, 50 bisexual people, and 50 transgender people. The good news is we've met our mark for gay men, so that's great. I don't know why. They came out in droves, but they did. We're about halfway where we need to be with lesbians. We are in dire need of bisexual men and women and transgender men and women to take our survey. everything, like all research you do, is completely confidential. Any information that we present or publish is only shared in aggregate. No one's name is ever revealed. It's a $25 incentive, which isn't much, which is why we appeal to your sense of being part of research and advancing the literature that's available for the purpose of advocacy. It takes about an hour and a half to complete on a laptop that we bring to a public place like Resource Center, Center for Community Cooperation, a library, something like that. And my contact information has been up here for a while. I also have flyers and business cards if anyone's interested. But if you are wonderful, if you're not, if you would please share, I'll put flyers in the back, share with a friend, someone that you think might want to spend an hour and a half to help advance some research that is really lacking and that could be very important for us. And we really hope that this start with 200 people is what's going to give us the visibility to do a much bigger survey to include more qualitative interviews, focus groups, a broader sample size. But this is what we can do right now, and we can sure use your help with it. So thank you very much. That's all I've got. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bart. You did a great job of setting the tone of the speed that we need from all of our speakers. So let me invite Sharyn Fein from Educare, and she's going to be talking about exploring existing services.
Good morning. My name is Sharyn Fein. As an ally and a founder of Educare, I'd like to thank the organizers of this event for the opportunity to share our vision of being a resource for the coalition and supporting the needs of older LGBT adults in Metroplex. Educare is a local, nonprofit whose goal is to work in the local communities that have been marginalized and neglected here in Texas. Towards this goal, we are committed to enhancing the knowledge and skills of those who seek to improve the life of older LGBT adults and their families. We know that there is not enough knowledge and health care for the needs of LGBT older adults in the Metroplex. For this reason, Educare has developed a program called Bridge Building Network to close the gap between communities and fill the void with cultural competency education through awareness programs and training. Here's an overview with some supporting slides. We are a local nonprofit organization. Our goal is to work in communities that have been marginalized and neglected in the state of Texas. Educare focuses on these local communities: professional caregivers who live with compassion fatigue, older adults with dementia residing in assisted living, veterans and Holocaust survivors, older LGBT adults. Our organizational structure looks like this. Here's our umbrella. Here's Educare. We have 4 programs that we support in the Metroplex. Hearts and Hands works with marginalized communities living in assisted living facilities in our city. It's a touch and talk program. Compassion Fatigue Symposium Awareness is an annual event that is low cost or non-cost caregivers who are dealing with marginalized communities or aging. Honoring Lives is a caregiving training program for people that are working with veterans. And of course, Bridge Building Network. Most caregiving providers have minimal awareness or experience in serving LGBT older adults. Historical prejudice against today's LGBT has disrupted lives, connections to family of origin, the chance to have and raise children, and opportunities to earn a living and save for retirement. The stigma associated with being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender stands in the way of full participation in community and society for many LGBT elders. It impedes full and equal access to important health and community services, programs, and opportunities. Today, 80% of long-term care, 2/3 of adults who receive long-term care at home depend on family members as their only source of help. By contrast, LGBT elders are more likely to be single, childless, and estranged from biological families, relying on friends and communities as their chosen family. Since laws and institutional regulations generally recognize only biological family as choice, many resources are not available to alternative caregivers. So you may ask yourself, why is this straight woman standing in front of you today? The reason is very, very deep inside of my soul, and I'll tell you why. I am Alzheimer's daughter. I've been taking care of my mother from the time I'm 16 years old through psychological illness into mid-stage Alzheimer's. I left the career and the path I chose at Vanderbilt University and got drugged home so that I can take care of my mother, and I take care of her today proudly with my heart and soul. I'm very, very interested in aging. She's the proof that it's not fair. I can tell you many stories. I also work in the aging community in our city. My interest in supporting the coalition and educating and training people about aging LGBT comes from the loss, which I share very limitedly because it's so very, very painful to me, to talk about the loss of my best friend, Mark. Mark was a closet gay man. He came out very, very late in life and died of AIDS. He was alone. Nobody knew. His mother kept him closeted. He was closed. We didn't know. 10 years later, I was on Facebook and I learned that my best friend died. It's my goal and my dream to make sure that I honor his memory and the memories of others who lived that life, didn't have an opportunity to grow old and age in this community with what they need. I have been in the aging care business professionally and as a volunteer for most of my life. This is the reason why EduCare has created Bridge Building Network, a blending of ally and LGBT professionals. It's happening. We're doing it. It's a reality in this city. There are people who care deeply about your community. We invite all communities together to work in a safe and welcoming environment to increase and educate and train attendees about cultural humility. EduCare and Bridge Building Network have strengths. We are local, and I stress local, so any of the money that we raise stays here. It doesn't go anywhere else. We're not shipping our money to national organizations. Our money stays here and takes care of you here. So we have established well-known contacts within the Dallas-Fort Worth LGBT and Dallas-Fort Worth non-LGBT communities. We already know the local aging services providers and caregivers and have positive, wonderful relationships with them. We have over 2 years of offering our LGBT awareness program to primary non-LGBT service providers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Bridge Building Network Advisory Board is filled with so many well-known LGBTs and allies who have experience within their communities and or have backgrounds in elder care or an important life story to tell in our service providing awareness programs. Here they are. You know these people, and they are part of making this happen in our city, and we're doing a great job. Accomplishments to date. We have a quarterly awareness program that has already been presented to more than 50 healthcare providers and business professionals in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We offer cultural competency training sessions for free, and we also offer training sessions that have a small attachment to it financially that include continuing education credits. Our sessions are tailored to the organization's needs. Here are our future plans. To create a documentary on needs of our local LGBTs in our city, aging. We are currently working on and we are creating a manual for LGBT caregivers. We really want to offer mixers for LGBT care providers and allies, potential allies, to increase comfort levels between the two groups. You cannot tell me that this is not a heterosexually oriented city. The people that are running the institutions in our city are straight. We need to educate them and we need to teach them what they need to know. We need to make this a better city. We need to make this an inclusive place. We continue with quarterly awareness and cultural competency training sessions, and we leverage from the aid and local research on LGBT aging. For example, we have TCU is offering a transgender study. I have some information on it. It's on the back table. Please take a look. They're doing important things at TCU. This is the contact information for Educare. I invite anybody in this room to be a part of our mission. I have cards in the back of the room. Contact me. We are growing and we are adding, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here. The next Bridge Building Network Awareness meeting will be on August 11th. It's a light dinner. It's by RSVP because we like to keep it small. And it's here hosted at the Senior Source because they care deeply about your community, and we're grateful. And thank you, Sarah. Educare's brochures are on the back table, as well as flyers about the TCU research project and business cards. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm honored and I'm flattered to be the only ally here today representing what we do. And I want you to know that my mission and our mission is from our heart, and we mean it. So please, please participate and become a part of what we're doing. We care. Thank you for the opportunity to share this mission with you this morning, and I wish you all a very happy June Pride Month.
Thank you, Sharyn. And a quick round of applause for Rafiq, who's doing our AV today. He hasn't even been doing a great job. I'd like to welcome up Robert Emery to talk about some LGBT housing options representing Safe Haven.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm even more excited that you are here because we're doing something historic this morning, and I think you will be very glad to say that you were at the very first meeting. I'm here to talk to you about housing for our GLBT seniors, but I am not currently employed in that industry. I am a community volunteer with 20 years of experience of passionately working to bring GLBT housing to Dallas. I must beg your kind indulgence and forgiveness when I interchange the terms GLBT and LGBT and even gay and allies. They are all interchangeable and equal in every way. The original order of the letters was GLBT. The current common usage established by the Associated Press is LGBT. However, I maintain that if we are using LGBT still, we are woefully behind the trend of the LGBT, QQ, RST, A, and I. And I did not make up those letters for a punchline. Please don't ask me to explain the meaning of all those particular letters because they're part of personal expressions that I don't fully understand myself. But this is why sometimes I simply boil everything down to gay and allies. As the population of our nation ages, there will be an increased need for assisted living communities to accommodate their needs. We call this major shift in the age demographic of the population the silver tsunami. It's coming at us fast. Statistics speak for themselves. As the general population ages, so will GLBT seniors. And the simple fact creates a true need to be filled. Assisted living communities that are tailored to the GLBT seniors. This is a growing trend of niche or affinity retirement communities, where people who share similar interests, religions, ethnicities, or professional backgrounds decide to live in the same place. Already, existing communities accommodate many different lifestyles, although not all with formal care components. And this formal care component we will talk about in just a minute. Former professional or wannabe musicians, actors, writers, artists, and other creative types rent apartments at the Burbank Senior Artists Colony in Los Angeles. Retired union dues paying letter carriers settle at Knollcrest in Central Florida. Back to nature types live in their own cabins in Somerville, Tennessee. And Rainbow's End in Livingston, Texas is geared to RV owners with some very limited assisted living or respite care for those who need it. And by the way, do not be encouraged by the use of the rainbow. They are not LGBT friendly. There are about 100 niche communities. They are the future of housing and will explode in the next 10 years as baby boomers reach the age of 75. Experts maintain that the sheer number of aging boomers, 78 million, means it won't be difficult to find 200 or 300 like-minded souls to form a retirement community. There might be one for Jimmy Buffett fans, for instance, or dog lovers, or history enthusiasts, or gardeners, or vegetarians. The options are unlimited. One of my favorite affinity communities is right here in Dallas, The Legacy, a faith-based community for Jewish aged. They have 3 campuses in the Metroplex, and I'd move in today. And by the way, because they are not exclusively for that faith. It's an affinity or a niche. That's why, well, and we'll get to that too. For the last 30 years, your choices were to retire by a golf course or out in the country on top of a mountain. However, when you consider the generation that created 12 different flavors of Coca-Cola, baby boomers aren't going to settle for a generic retirement community or just 2 or 3 choices. This is great news for GLBT seniors and their non-gay allies. Here in Dallas, separate groups of innovators have been working for many years to prepare for this silver tsunami, or as I like to call it, the silver glitter tsunami. Silver Hope began plans to develop an LGBT community in September of 2000. Metro Club, of which I was a board member, tried to buy Old Parkland in 2002. I'm going to go through some history incredibly fast and shallow. Every one of these bits of history I'm giving you have fantastic stories about the ins and outs of why it didn't happen. But we don't worry about that. It didn't happen. And I'll be happy to share them with you because they're fascinating. Not now. But as been spoken before, each time they didn't happen, no problem. We cried for one day, and then we regrouped. Silver Hope project reached its dead end in December of 2006. For reasons we'll discuss at another time. Trying to move along. When Avalon in Kessler Park opened in Oak Cliff in April 30th, 2010, it billed itself as Dallas's first senior living apartment complex actively welcoming the LGBT community. Did anyone visit Avalon? It was beautiful, wasn't it? Wasn't it completely beautiful? It suffered the same thing I personally believe that others have suffered in Santa Fe with Rainbow Vision and other places, which is active apartment retirement community, we are not interested in as a community. You may be personally in this room interested in that, but I can tell you nationally, we apparently are not interested in an exquisitely beautiful, large apartment complex geared to our community. We need a formal care component. Safe Haven was formed in 2013. Safe Haven tried to buy Parkgate in 2014. You all may recognize this as the former Braniff Conference Center and Flight Attendant College that's at the corner of Wycliffe and the Toll Road. It was already a retirement community, and the owner so wanted to sell it to us. She eventually sold it to somebody else who's not even going to carry on that way, and all of her beloved residents had to go someplace else. And can you imagine the horror of that? That building is so incredibly beautiful inside too. You all would be so proud to call it home. It didn't happen, it can't happen. We moved on. Safe Haven is currently looking at several options for locations. I have visited recently Fountain Grove Lodge in Santa Rosa, California. They are a full CCRC community geared for the gays and allies community, and I encourage you to find them on the web, Fountain Grove Lodge. If I were 75, I would move in there today. It is crazy beautiful. Palm Springs has Stonewall Gardens, a 24-resident AL community, and we need something very much like this in Dallas. Here is a quote from Rabbi Keith Stern. Quote, "Whenever you feel yourself to be in a subculture, you feel enormous relief to be in a place where you don't have to explain yourself." Amen. He said that in 1992, and it's still true today, and it will always be true. Safe Haven holds a vision that is pure and simple. A gay-owned and gay-operated assisted living facility designed to serve the GLBT and allies community. Our residents will experience the Safe Haven promise to respect and protect. The Safe Haven facility will be identical in every way to any other assisted living facility, with one fabulous exception. Our programs and activities will keep our residents connected to the community that means so very much to them. A perfect example of this would be if HBO were to produce a movie on the subject of Harvey Milk, or Stonewall, or the Dallas Buyers Club, then the programs at Safe Haven would center around that for the preceding week. Lectures, discussions, all leading up to a fantastic party, a fantastic watch party. Now, contrast this to the loneliness our gay brothers and sisters feel who are currently isolated within a community that doesn't celebrate GLBT history. That fantastic movie would come and go without being enjoyed. This is precisely what I have discovered in my years of research on this subject. I have walked into hundreds to represent myself as trying to find a home for my lesbian mother, my lesbian widowed mother. So she's a single woman. 90% of AL communities say they welcome, and of course the salesperson does. Of course, they're the most fantastic front person you would ever want to. That's why they're in that job. They can tell you, of course, we have, but when pressed further, there is no program on the calendar for GLBT seniors. None. Here's what needs to happen. A HUD project for affordable housing for LGBT seniors. Dallas needs to join the League of Great American Cities such as Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and New York. These projects are huge, $18 to $24 million. They house, on average, 75 apartments. Let me stress, in none of these cities is there a formal care component. This is simply affordable for 55-plus seniors. There are Houston. Houston is currently trying to place an LGBT-friendly, affordable housing project in southeast Houston, just beyond the Museum District. But the neighborhood is objecting. 40,000 gay seniors in North Texas, and they have an average income of $20,000. We need affordable housing. We need in-home care for people who want to stay in their home for as long as they can. But we need it owned and operated by people who understand what it means to be married for 30 years to a person of your same gender, or someone who you don't have to remove the pictures from your dresser when they come over to your house to take blood. We need visiting nurses, and we need an assisted living facility featuring medication management, chauffeur services, and laundry and housekeeping services. These are standard that all AL communities do. In other words, an AL facility that operates exactly like every other AL facility, with one fabulous distinction. Its programs and services are geared to the gay and ally community. I have 90 seconds left in my time, and I want to open the floor to if anything I've said has sparked a question in your mind. Oh, something has. I know. Fluffy?
Yes. Are you currently working on any particular location?
Yes, we are working on 2 locations, but with all things related to real estate, you can never discuss them. It will mess up your negotiation. Pardon me?
You don't have to
I didn't kill you. Right. But I'll say it this way, though. We keep returning to a particular place that when we're able to announce it, you will say to yourself, oh my goodness, of course. But, no, I'm sorry. Because it's real estate, you have to do all these things. And there are times when we meet with banks that Arthur and I go slightly back in the closet for the first meeting. Slightly back. We've sat in conference rooms with bankers who, when we started out just telling them what we wanted to do, they slowly just got glazed because they just couldn't understand what the need. So, yes, particularly we're working back and forth on 2 places. Kathy?
Do you already have funding, or?
The good news is that we have banks such as Bank of America, Frost Bank, and Veritex who are absolutely on board and meeting all the time and can't thank you for whoever. And we won't go into the list of people we've glazed over, but they, big banks like Frost and Bank of America have divisions to develop LGBT business, and they were very enthusiastic. And Kathy, since you asked that, management companies we talk to, without exception, have said, oh, God, could you please let us manage it? Because we have so many gay employees who have told us they want to move from Kansas City with their husband and children to be the manager. Management companies, no problem. Financing, no problem. Got to find that building. Got to get that land. Okay, I have time, I'm sorry, just for one more, and I saw yours, yes?
Obviously, there's a gap between $20,000 average income and what the cost of living would be for people living in these facilities. How are you proposing that we handle that?
Yes, terrific. Fountain Grove, for instance, Fountain Grove in Santa Rosa, California, that I just visited and showed you how good. That's a $25 million project. You have to have $365,000 to give them to move in. And then you have to pay them $4,000 to $6,000 a month to live there for the rest of your life. But I say that because it's just crazy beautiful, right? Now, I would like to answer your question this way, by encouraging you to go on the web and find out for yourself, because I don't want to be the bearer of the bad news of what any assisted living facility costs. But here is the safe haven model. We're going to be absolutely in the middle. So when you do your research and it costs, because there's a million variables. Sometimes you have to pay in a lot, like Fountain Grove. Sometimes you can just start on your first month and just go month to month. There's all kinds of markets, but we're committed to being absolutely in the middle.
What's your contact information?
Oh, so you can find us on the web at safehavendallas.com. And you don't need a business card from me today from this meeting, because if you go to safehavendallas.com and you go to the contact page and you write a note, it goes directly to me. So you may begin with, hello, Robert, because you're talking directly to me. I really appreciate your kind attention on this important issue, and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. I want to encourage each of you to meet somebody today who doesn't look anything like you, or meet somebody today that you think you may have nothing in common with. You will discover differently, and you will be glad for it. Thank you.
So, really quick, just to, and this isn't going to answer your question about the gap and the cost, but I think the one thing that we can probably all agree is that's why there's a necessity for this coalition, and why we need as many people to join it, because at the end of the day, we know that this community gives, and they have been giving for years. It's time to start targeting it towards the people who have been fighting for the rights that so many people are enjoying now. And for that. So please, if for any reason, if that's a worry, financial is a worry, let's make this coalition as strong as possible. Moving on, we are going to bring Omar Narvaez up here from LAMBDA Legal, and make sure to give him a big round of applause because he fed us breakfast.
Hey, hello everybody. Thank you. Hello everybody. My name is Omar Narvaez, and I am the community educator for LAMBDA Legal. Sorry, I have a booming voice. I usually don't use a microphone because I do that. I do work for LAMBDA Legal. LAMBDA Legal is the nation's oldest and largest LGBT legal nonprofit. In the nation, we have been making the case for equality in the court on behalf of the community as well as those with HIV for 42 years. We're headquartered out of New York with 4 regional offices, and we are the only national LGBT organization that actually has offices in the South, with one being in Atlanta and of course here in Dallas. And then our other 2 regional offices are in Los Angeles and in Chicago. So this was a really exciting opportunity for me because LAMBDA Legal does have a senior rights attorney. We have a senior rights project. But for many years, we just kind of neglected it. It was just that one person. They were kind of in the corner on their own. And as I started to look at it, I'm in the community education team, I realized we kind of are doing to our senior rights project what we do to our seniors. Kind of just dismissing them. And all of us are working on youth. No offense to the youth. No offense to the youth. Everybody in my ComEd team wanted to do youth work. I get it. I understood why. We're a little bit, I like to call myself a millennial X because I'm part of the Gen X community, but I really get along with the millennials. And now that great statistic about, it's going to be Garcia will be the new Smith, not Rodriguez, but because that's the #1 Latino surname in the world, in the nation now. So now I'm like, oh, am I going to be a millennial XZ? So anyway, so I went to my organization and said, hey, we need to take a look at seniors. And this was about 1.5 years ago. And through my years of working with LAMBDA Legal, now at 4 years, last year when we changed over, we decided to take some of us community educators and make us, promote us, and make us what's called issue specialists. And so naturally, of course, since I was talking about seniors, Guess which area I got? Seniors. So it was really exciting. It was really scary, though, because I didn't really know anything about the elder community as far as what was going on. And kind of what Miles mentioned earlier about that disconnect, totally disconnected. Didn't realize that I was kind of also neglecting my elders. I appreciated my elders, but I realized that within my community, I kind of stuck with my own age group and didn't really do a lot with other age groups. And that has completely changed since I got in on this project. So I've been on this national project for just a few months. And one of the first people I talked to was Cannon when I noticed that on Facebook, because that's my millennial part of me, right, is all the social media. I noticed that Cannon went to this White House conference on aging, and I think I immediately contacted you and was like, I want to talk to you about it. It took us a couple months to finally coordinate schedules, but we got it done. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview. This is going to be really brief and fast because I know we're way behind time, and Cannon's looking at me like, yeah, we're way behind time. So I'm going to be really brief and fast about this information that I'm going to give you. So this is our senior project that we're working on so far. So LAMBDA Legal, we defend the rights of LGBT and HIV positive seniors who face discrimination related to their sexual orientation, gender identity, or HIV status. This list here includes discrimination by staff and residents at senior centers, denial of housing, denial of the ability for same-sex couples to share a room, disrespect of gender identity, including while incapacitated or at death, and denial of equal Social Security benefits and survivor benefits as compared to their heterosexual counterparts. So what makes LGBT older adults unique? Well, many LGBT older adults, they live alone. They rely on other older adults for support and caregiving. It's a different era. I came out 20 years ago, which I remember my elders telling me, you're so brave to come out in college. You're so brave. Like, I would have never dreamed to have done that. And now here I'm becoming one, I'm at the very, 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 I don't know if elder is the right word, but just in the community as being a leader. And now I'm looking at some of these young folks going, I can't believe you're coming out in high school and middle school. You're so brave. And I went, whoa, that's what the generation before me told me, except now I'm telling them at a different age. So it's different. And also, with our young people, like the ones that are here, many of them do have affirming families or affirming groups that are ready for them, where maybe our elders didn't have that or don't have that. So that's very unique. There's also a history of discrimination, which leaves many LGBT older adults with a general distrust of mainstream institutions. They're going to treat me differently. Just for me, in the past few years, I've been with my partner for almost 20 years, and I have finally got my doctor to quit putting married or single as my, and because for years I kept writing in partnered, doctor, when can you get up these forms? It's offensive. And finally, she got them updated. So it's like, took a while, but that was my constant advocacy. So there are tools for protecting LGBT seniors. So the beginning is advanced planning to avoid problems. Wills, powers of attorney, directives, and then there's knowing your rights, using the law when things go wrong. So tools for life and financial planning, you can find this on our website. There's a great link on our website, and it has all of these different tools within the toolkit. So, tools for preparing wills and trusts, protecting your assets in life, protecting yourself in a relationship, protecting your children. A lot of LGBT families have children, but only one person in that relationship actually has legal rights to those children or that child. Or it could be a mixed family. I got rights on 2 of them, you got rights on the other 2 of them. And all of a sudden something happens to one, and a family can be split apart. Devastating. Many of our transgender sisters and brothers have children and all of a sudden they transition, and their former partner, spouse, what have you, uses their transition as the way to take that child out of their life. That's devastating for the transgender person, but as well as the child. So there's a lot of pieces in this toolkit. It was alluded earlier that when the Supreme Court makes that decision, which, oh yeah, by the way, we are the organization that's doing that whole little marriage equality case out of Ohio. with our friends at the ACLU of Ohio, I want to make sure we preface, it's with our friends at the ACLU of Ohio, that, you know, it doesn't end there. It's not going to end there, and I'm going to go over that here in a second so that you see that marriage is not the answer. It's the first step, but it's not the answer to everything. So know your rights. So LGBT older adults and older adults living with HIV, you have rights. And in the back of the room, I have a whole table in that corner with lots of little resources. And this is the first little resource that I'm going over. You see there's even a picture of it on the big screen. It's just a little pocket card that kind of gives you a quick template of your rights. And in here, you can read these on your own. I don't want to go over each of them really, you know, fast, but you have the right to be free from discrimination and accessing health care. You have the right to be free from discrimination, isolation, harassment, abuse, neglect, and long-term care. You have those rights. You may not realize it, but you have them. You also have the right to be free from discrimination in public and private housing, including access to housing assistance and programs like Section 8 and senior housing programs. You have that right. You have the right to be visited by a spouse, a partner, or any other person of your choice in a hospital and in a long-term care facility, as long as it's not a private one. If that facility receives any kind of federal funding, you have a right to have whoever you want to come visit you or be with you. And that was an executive order by President Barack Obama. To be respected in their health care decisions and end-of-life decisions, such as those set forth in a healthcare proxy, living will, power of attorney, funeral directives. The big thing that I want you to leave today is to know that a will is not the answer to everything. It's a tool, but it's not the answer to everything. So that's why it's real important that you check out that Life and Financial Planning Toolkit. Employment discrimination for LGBT seniors. People are working longer because it costs a lot more to make it, right? So you're working longer. You may not have that ability to take care of yourself at that 55, 56, 62, 65, 67 year age. And also, we're healthier. We're healthier at these ages, so you feel good still. You're like, I can still work. I don't want to quit. I'm not done yet. So we've got rights. So this is a pretty ugly ad that was in a newspaper. We don't see this too often anymore, right? But this stuff still goes on. In Texas, you live in a state where you can be fired simply because of your orientation or your actually your gender identity expression is actually protected now by the EEOC from a case that we had a couple years back. So employment discrimination. So sexual orientation, I kind of already said, you are not protected. LGB, lesbian, gay, bisexual, we do not have, oh yeah, and even the straight people, they don't have protections either. You can be fired if you're straight too. Doesn't happen, but you could be fired for being straight. Gender identity expression, there is protections through the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but does not mean that businesses are there. Doesn't mean they've been educated, doesn't mean they know. We're fighting EEOC complaint cases right now left and right all over the country because we have those protections, but it takes a lot of court cases, or it takes a lot of working so that these companies finally, it clicks, it hits. Oh yeah, we can't do that. Age. Do you have protections on age? How many think you have protections on age? How many think you do not have protection on age? Okay, you do have protection on age if you're older, 55 plus. You don't have protections if you're younger. So my fellow Xers or millennials, I can discriminate against you if you're under 18. I don't have to hire you if you're under 18. I can say, yeah, so age is one of those funny little ones there. Denying access for marriage to marriage harms families, spousal benefits. So yesterday was a really big historic day for us here in Texas. We filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of this couple that one of the spouses works at the University of North Texas, and the state of Texas's employment retirement service refuses to give them spousal benefits. They are married in another state and is refusing to give them those benefits. And so that's why I alluded that just because marriage equality, we're very confident we're going to win this Supreme Court case, doesn't mean that tomorrow, all of a sudden, all these companies, all these governmental agencies are going to go, you got married, here's your benefits. Let me go ahead and hand them to you on the silver platter. They'll come kicking and screaming. In Iowa, which we won 5 years ago, we are still taking lawsuits in the state of Iowa, in the state of New York, others, because they're catching up. They don't realize these issues that are still taking place. So marriage is not the key to everything. First step, but we still got a battle. We still got war, little battles to fight to win this war. So this was just yesterday. So it's kind of nice that we had a North Texas case from our area that's been filed. You have resident rights in the LGBT community. These are your rights as a nursing home resident. And I did bring, also on the back, we have this resource, this small toolkit that's already printed, easy to read. It's done by LAMBDA Legal, the National Resource Center on LGBT Aging, and the National Long-Term Care Ombudsman Resource Center. And so this is a lot of information that has all of these in there and goes into detail over each one of these rights that you have, which I don't have the time to go over because that's another workshop. But I'm sure when we do this again in the future, we'll do it in a, we'll have workshops and stuff later on, so hopefully. Or we can just have a workshop where we bring it together later. HIV. We heard a lot about HIV today. We have a generation that is missing in our community because of HIV. But now we have our first generation that has survived HIV and is living today and is living to senior age, which is wonderful and phenomenal. But not too long ago, in Little Rock, Arkansas, Dr. Robert Frank, he was 75 years old. He's passed away now, was HIV positive, and he disclosed that on his forms. And when he moved into the nursing home facility, paid his fees, we heard about the fees earlier from Robert, paid his fees, got moved in, and all of a sudden the night he moved in, some jerk, I can't say the other word, noticed that he was HIV positive on his forms, packed him up, put him outside in the cold rain, called his daughter and said, you have to come pick him up. He can't stay here. He can't live here. His stuff can stay in his room until you can come get it, but he's outside waiting for you. That's blatant discrimination. We took that case, we won it. Things have changed, obviously, in that area, and they won a great settlement to where Dr. Frank was able to buy his own house and move in next door to his daughter, and life ended up good for him for the remainder of it. But these are the kind of discriminations that are still there that we have to look at and take care of. So that's why it's important that these facilities, these long-term care facilities, aren't even understanding of issues like HIV. Denying access to marriage, how it harms families. There's denial of family health insurance from employers, which we saw in that other case. Denial of family medical leave care for partners. Denial of the right to visit a partner in the hospital. Denial of bereavement leave after losing a loved one. Right now in Texas, if you have an employer that doesn't recognize your union, could you imagine being told, no, you can't go to your long-term partner's funeral? No, you can't go take care of your spouse? That's ridiculous. So these are things that we're going to have to watch for, and we're already starting. That's why we filed that case on behalf of those two women here in North Texas. We're jumping ahead. We know it's coming. We're so confident that we're going to go ahead and start moving ahead faster and forward. Denying access to marriage harms families. This is Social Security. So Social Security, I think Cannon showed us that 75% of elders will be relying on Social Security to survive. So last year, this is Robina Osti. She's a 92-year-old transgender woman. She's also a veteran, an Air Force pilot. She was married to a cisgender male, and her husband passed away. And she applied for survivor benefits. She's married. And the Social Security Administration denied her those benefits and said because she was transgender. So the Fed wouldn't recognize that marriage because it happened before the Windsor decision. So she came into our office. We usually don't take this kind of case, but our lawyers met with her in New York, and they talked to her and they listened to her story. And if you want, go to our website or just go onto YouTube and look up Flying Solo. Flying Solo. We did a small, quick documentary on her. It's like 7 minutes long, and I wanted to show it, but it was past my amount of time. So watch it. Maybe we can screen it some other time, but she tells her story, and by the end of it, I promise you'll be in tears because she tells her story beautifully. And but what was really great was last year on Valentine's Day, we sent a letter on her behalf to the Social Security Administration, and on Valentine's Day of last year, with no warning, nobody told us, all of her benefits and her back benefits were given to her on that day. And it was exciting because she said that for her, it was like her husband had given her a Valentine's Day present, like he'd come back to give her one last Valentine's Day present. And that's just, and the impact, because that's what we do is impact litigation, is that the impact is that the Social Security Administration then immediately changed their policies in regards to spousal benefits, survivor benefits for transgender married individuals. So that's a huge change for us. So trans people are not being discriminated against anymore, Social Security. Which is a great segue into trans aging. We're still here. Transgender people are also, they become seniors too. So we have this wonderful trans rights toolkit. This is just a piece of it. It does have like 15 different pieces in it, but this is one piece of it that I brought, and they're in the back as well. So if you're working with trans populations, or you just want to know more so that you can be an ally, it's written for allies and transgender people, so that you know what to do or what kind of information. This one is just specific on aging. The rest of the toolkit you can get online as well. You can just go to our Know Your Rights toolkit area. But it's wonderful information. And important resources, because again, I was told, I lost I wanted the important resource. I know Kathy out there wanted to write my information down. Here we go. So, Rafiq. I can't make this last slide stay.
Here, I think they can see it. Can everybody see it from there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, we'll make it go back and just leave it like that. So if you can see it, my contact information is there. That's my email. Feel free to email me at any time. It's not misspelled. It is O-N-A-R. I know my name is Omar, but my last name is N-A-R-V-A-E-Z, and we use the first initial. I get asked that all the time. Did you know they misspelled your web? I was like, no, they didn't, but thanks for knowing me as Omar. Those are our telephone numbers for our legal help desk. If you are ever discriminated against, have a legal question, know somebody who's being discriminated against, feel free to call us. That might be the case that we're looking for. Fair warning, we do not do direct services. So if you get a ticket going down Harry Hines leaving out of here because you decided to drive 90, we're not going to help you with that ticket, okay? But we will give you names of attorneys who work on those types of issues that will treat you with dignity and respect. The other thing is on here is social media. So for definitely my millennials, like us on Facebook at Lambda Legal or Lambda Legal Dallas. For all of you that do the Facebook, do it as well. We're also on Twitter at Lambda Legal. We keep it really simple. And if you're that kind of millennial-ish, young at heart, and you're doing Instagram, we're also at Lambda Legal there as well. And then if you're really, really super want to be young at heart, we now have text alerts. So if you want to get in on what is happening, especially with the big Supreme Court case here is going on, you can text the word equality to the number 27722 So this is when you pull out your phone now and you put your messenger on and your text message, and the phone number is 27722, and you type the word equality, and then it'll send you a link back so you're registered. But then on the day of decision or anything that's happening, you will know from Lambda Legal what it all means, what these decisions mean. We're hoping for a yes on the marriage issue, and we're done. We're going to be celebrating in the streets. And that's the other thing, just so you all know, on the day of decision, whatever day it is, it's either going to be a Monday or Thursday for the rest of this month. Whatever day the decision comes down, we're going to be meeting at the Cathedral of Hope, along with all the other organizations that work on LGBT equality and our allies. We're going to have a rally there, a pep rally, hopefully a celebration. And then we're going to march. We're taking it to the streets, and we're going to end at the Legacy of Love Monument at the corner of Oak Lawn and Cedar Springs. I work on the other corner. That's what I was about to say, the other street names. And that's where we're going to end. So if walking or mobility is an issue for you, meet us at the end. Or if you only want to do the beginning and don't want to do the rest of it, then you're okay.
And don't forget the faith-based leaders will be at 11:30 at the Records Building for a press conference.
Correct, yes. Thank you, yeah. And the faith-based leaders, we made sure that we're starting with faith-based at the Cathedral for the rally and ending with faith-based at the end of the rally. And then at the press conference, we did make sure that we're going to have as many of our faith leaders that are allies with us. So if you want to come and be part of that press conference, 11:30 in front of the Records Building. And we're hoping, if everything's great, that we will be conducting the first same-sex marriage that day as well in front of the Records Building.
John Warren said yesterday
he said he'll do it.
He'll issue immediately, right. And we have a couple of judges who are
we've got everybody ready to go. Like David's saying, our county clerk, he said that he will issue the license, and then we've got judges ready to waive the waiting time and then to do the whole, you're married. And we've got the couple that wants to do it. So it'll be historic when it happens because Bo and Major, if y'all may remember the story a couple years ago, they were arrested inside of the Records Building. So that's the couple we think is just absolutely the perfect couple to be the first ones to marry in Dallas County. Again, my name is Omar Narvaez. I work for Lambda Legal, and I appreciate you all for having me. I think I got it pretty close.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.